Virelon was a quiet world. Floating near the edge of known space, it was a place of trade, art and peace. Its skies were green with twin moons, and its people, the Virelians, believed they were far too small to matter to the wider galaxy. They were wrong. It began on a night of calm winds and quiet stars. Then the heavens tore open. A streak of fire cut across the sky, trailing smoke and metal. The forests trembled as something massive crashed through the clouds and slammed into the mountains beyond the village of Nareth. The shockwave knocked down trees and sent a wave of heat rolling through the valley. The villagers gathered at the ridge, staring at the trail of burning debris. "It's a ship," someone whispered. "No," another said, voice trembling. "It's a pod. Their survivor's pod." They had never seen anything like it. 3 brave Virelians, traders by day, scavengers by curiosity, followed the smoke until they reached the crater. Inside, half buried in dirt and glowing metal, was a pod the color of gunmetal. Its hatch was half melted, its surface marked with strange letters: TSN Rescue Unit, Terran Navy. Then it hissed open. A hand, covered in shattered armor, reached out. It trembled once and fell still. Inside lay a creature none of them had ever seen. Pale skin under the cracked helmet, blood dark and slow-moving. A human, the legends had been true. The Virelians stepped back in fear. "Kill it," one said. "If the old stories are right, humans bring war." But one among them, Reva, the village healer, knelt beside the pod. Her bright green eyes studied the human's wounds, the torn breathing tube, the fading heartbeat on the small wrist display. She shook her head. "He's dying. Let him," another whispered. "It's safer that way." Reva ignored them. She pressed her hands to his chest, activating her healing field. "No life is meant to be thrown away," she said softly. "Not even his." They carried the human back through the forest under the cover of darkness. That night, Virelon's fate changed forever. The human's name, they later learned, was Captain Elias Trent. When he awoke, days later, his eyes were sharp but filled with pain. He spoke strange words, half in his language, half through the translator they built for him. He said he came from a world called Earth, from a fleet called the Terran Navy. He spoke of an ambush, ships attacked by something he would not name. He said he was the only survivor. Then, exhausted, he fell into a coma. The Virelian Council met in secret. Some wanted to hand him to the interstellar patrols. Others wanted to erase all trace of him. "Humans fight wars across stars," said Eldevar. "If they learn we have one of their soldiers, they may bring that war here." Reva stood before them. He was dying. "I saved him. If they come, they'll see what we are. Not warriors, not enemies, but people who helped." The elders disagreed but could not stop her. So Reva kept him hidden in her home by the cliffs, away from curious eyes. Days became weeks. Weeks turned into months. Elias slowly healed. His strength returned, though his mind still carried shadows. He began to speak more, teaching Reva about Earth, its cities, its oceans, its endless skies. She told him about Virelon, a world without soldiers, without fear. They laughed sometimes. He called her brave. She called him strange, and for a moment it seemed peace had returned. But peace never lasts long near the edge of space. One night, Reva looked up and saw streaks of light cutting across the stars. Not the bright trails of traders. These were sharp, fast, wrong ships. Unknown and unregistered raiders. Within hours, the skies filled with static. The villages near the coast sent distress calls. Entire trade stations were being stripped bare. The raiders were looking for something. Then came the broadcast. A voice, harsh and cold, echoed through every comm signal on the planet. "Attention inhabitants of Virelon. You are sheltering a fugitive from the Terran Navy. Deliver the human alive and your world will remain untouched. Refuse and burn." Reva froze. How did they know? She turned to Elias. He was already suiting up and pale but determined. "They can't find me," he said. "They'll destroy everything." "You can't fight them," she replied. "You can barely stand. I won't let them kill your people for me." But Reva stood her ground. "You came from the stars, Captain. But this world saved you. You are one of us now." Her words silenced him. Outside, alarms began to sound. The night sky turned red as raider ships entered the atmosphere. Villages burned. Searchlights swept across the forests. Reva hid Elias beneath her home in a chamber cut into the rock. She sealed the hatch and whispered through the comm panel, "Stay silent. I'll come back." Then she ran into the storm. Above the planet, one of the raider ships powered up its long-range scanner. Deep inside its control systems, something flickered to life. A small, unnoticed distress signal built into the human's armor. It pulsed once. Then again, a message left Virelon, racing across the stars faster than light. It was not sent by the raiders. It was not sent by Riva. It was sent by the armor of a dying Terran soldier, and somewhere, far beyond the edge of the galaxy. Humanity heard the call. The raiders came with fire. Their ships darkened the sky, blotting out the twin moons of Virelon. Villages burned as plasma bolts rained down on rooftops. The people ran, terrified, clutching their children and few belongings. They had never seen war until now. In the forest beneath the smoke, Riva guided Captain Elias Trent through the shadows. His armor was cracked, his breathing ragged, but his eyes burned with the cold fire of a soldier who had seen too much. "You should have left me," he said. "They're here for me." Riva shook her head. "They're here because of you. There's a difference." They reached a cave system hidden under the cliffs. The air was damp, thick with the scent of moss and fear. Riva helped him sit, then activated the healing crystals on his chest plate. His vitals flickered, stabilizing for the moment. Above them, the sounds of gunfire echoed through the trees. The raiders were searching. They moved in lines, dragging villagers from their homes, shouting for answers. "Where is the human?" their leader demanded. His name was Drex Malor, scarred face, cybernetic eye, and a voice like grinding metal. He was a bounty hunter turned warlord, a man who sold living beings to the highest bidder. To him, a Terran officer was worth a fortune. When no one spoke, he executed a villager on the spot. The silence that followed was worse than the screams. Riva's heart pounded. She knew they would eventually find Elias. She needed time, just enough for him to recover, just enough for the distress beacon to be heard by someone out there. But Elias knew something she didn't. The beacon in his armor wasn't just a call for help. It was a signal that could be tracked. The Terran Navy would find it, but so could the enemies who destroyed his fleet. If the wrong side intercepted it, humanity might never come. "I have to finish the transmission," he whispered. "The code isn't complete," Riva frowned. "You're too weak." "You'll die," he met her eyes. "If I don't, they'll find you anyway." Outside, Drex's men closed in on the forest. Riva ran out under cover of smoke, drawing them away. She sprinted through burning trees, shouting, throwing rocks to make noise. Plasma bolts chased her steps. She dove behind a fallen trunk, breathing hard. When the raiders surrounded her, she lifted her hands. "Stop!" she cried. "I'll tell you where he is." Drex's metal eye gleamed. "You'll tell me, little healer, or you'll watch your village burn." They dragged her to the square where her people knelt in chains. She saw her father among them, bruised, bleeding, eyes full of fear. She couldn't bear it. "He's in the northern woods," she said, her voice trembling. "In the cliffs near the falls." Drex smiled, cruel and slow. "You see? Even compassion breaks." He ordered his soldiers to the mountains, leaving her bound in the square. In the caves above, Elias heard her over the comlink. He understood instantly. "She gave me up," he muttered, but there was no anger in his voice, only guilt. "She's protecting the others." He grabbed his sidearm and stood, staggering toward the cave's exit. His body screamed with pain, but his eyes were steady. He wasn't going to run. He was going to fight. The first raider patrol arrived at dawn. They found nothing but shadows. Then one by one they vanished into the fog, silenced by precise shots from the darkness. Elias moved like a ghost, using the terrain and instinct to outmaneuver them. For every shot fired, a raider fell. When Drex's main force reached the cliffs, they found the bodies of their scouts hanging in the trees. Fear began to spread. Elias knew he couldn't hold them forever. His suit's power core was dying, his ammo low. But then, amid the static of his wrist console, a sound crackled through, the faint hum of a returning signal. The beacon had reached someone. "Mayday," he spoke into the comm. "Captain Elias Trent, Terran Navy, coordinates attached. Virelon under attack. Civilians in danger." The transmission sent, then silence. He dropped the device and sank to his knees. For the first time since the crash, he allowed himself to hope. In the village below, Drex's men returned empty-handed. Furious, he turned to Riva. "You lied to me." He lifted her by the throat. "Tell me where he is!" Reva choked out, "He's gone." "You're too late." Drex threw her to the ground and activated his communicator. "Send word to the other sectors. If the Terrans hear, the fleet might follow. I want eyes on every jump gate." He stormed away, leaving the village in ashes. From her knees, Reva watched the raider ships rise into the sky. The wind carried the scent of burning wood and loss. Somewhere above the clouds, her people's fate hung in the void. She whispered a silent prayer, not for herself but for the human she had saved. In the distance, Elias watched the smoke rise, gripping his weapon with trembling hands. "Hold on, Reva," he murmured. "Help is coming." Far beyond Virelon's star, deep in the dark of Terran space, a lone satellite flickered to life. Its sensors locked onto an ancient code, Terran Navy Emergency Frequency 037. The AI within scanned the message, matched the signal, and sent it across the network. Within minutes, alarms began to sound in the Terran Fleet Command. A forgotten name appeared on the central display. Captain Elias Trent. Status: missing, presumed dead. Admiral Imani Reyes stared at the screen. Her voice was cold and steady. "Find him," she said, "and whoever dared attack the people who saved him." In the heart of Terran space, alarms screamed across the command center of the Epsilon Spire. Operators rushed to terminals, data streams flashing red with one repeating signal, a Terran distress beacon. Code 037, source unknown edge system. It shouldn't have existed. That code was decades old, from a fleet long destroyed. At the center of the chaos stood Admiral Imani Reyes, calm amid the noise. Her dark eyes locked on the projection. "Origin?" she demanded. "Outer Rim Sector, Planet Virelon," the technician replied. "Signal confirms identity of Captain Elias Trent. Status previously KIA." The room fell silent. Reyes exhaled slowly. "Get me the Valkyrie group. Recon jump within the hour." Outside the viewport, the Terran fleet waited, a wall of silver and steel resting like giants beneath the starlight. Humanity had changed since the old wars. They no longer spread across the galaxy for conquest. They stayed quiet, watchful, disciplined. But one thing had not changed. They remembered their own. "He's alive," Reyes whispered. After all this time. On the deck below, Lieutenant Mara Havel prepared the scout ship TNS Vortex for a deep jump. Its engines hummed with pale blue light. "Ma'am," she said through comms, "we're ready for launch." Reyes nodded. "You have one mission. Confirm the signal and bring our man home. But if anyone's attacking that planet—" She paused. "Make them regret it." The vortex jumped into hyperspace, vanishing into the blue. As the stars folded around them, Mara watched the long-range scans flicker with anomalies. "Captain Trent," she murmured, "what the hell did you survive?" Back on Virillon, the fires still burned. Drex Maller's raiders scoured the forests but found nothing. Reva sat in chains in the village square, her wrists bleeding, her voice hoarse. The people around her were silent, broken. Drax paced before them, furious. "He's still here," he growled. "No human leaves this world without being noticed." His lieutenant approached. "Sir, we intercepted a weak transmission." It wasn't local. It left the system. Drex froze. "Show me." The raider's holopad projected the data, fragments of code, human in design. Drex's lips curled into a sneer. "So the fleet will come for him," he said. "Good, let them. I'll sell their hero's corpse back to them." In the cave above the cliffs, Elias knelt beside his flickering wrist console. The beacon was dead now. He had no way to know if the message got through. He sat in the silence, the weight of guilt pressing against his chest. Through the rock he could hear distant explosions. The raiders were burning through another settlement. He wanted to fight, but his armor was nearly drained, his weapon almost empty. Then he heard a faint voice crackle through his comm. "Captain Trent, this is Lieutenant Havel of the Terran Navy. We have your signal." "Confirm status." Elias froze. The words repeated. He pressed the transmit key. "Lieutenant, this is Trent, alive, planet under siege. Civilians at risk. Request immediate evacuation." "Static." "Then copy that, Captain." "Hold position." "Reinforcements inbound." Elias smiled for the first time in months. He looked toward the village. "Hold on, Reva," he whispered. "You're not alone anymore." The vortex exited hyperspace above Virelion's orbit. The world was small blue-green, with rising smoke columns visible even from space. Confirmed contact, Mara said. Reading multiple hostiles in low orbit. Raider class, lightly armed. They have no idea who we are, her co-pilot muttered. Let's keep it that way. The Terran ship cloaked, descending through the atmosphere like a shadow. Below, Drex's fleet prepared for departure, unaware of the storm about to hit them. On the ground, Elias moved through the forest, silent as a ghost. He ambushed a raider patrol, taking their weapons and armor. With grim precision, he moved toward the village, determined to free Riva. Night fell. The raid began. Plasma fire lit the darkness as Elias struck from the trees, every shot finding its mark. The Varelians saw flashes in the fog. One man fighting an army. It's him, someone whispered. The human! Panic spread among the raiders. Drex bellowed orders, but it was too late. Elias broke through their lines, reaching the square. Riva looked up through the smoke and saw him, bleeding, limping, but alive. You came back, she said. I told you, he said, pulling off her chains. Humans don't abandon their own. Before Drex could react, a beam of light split the sky, the vortex descending. The Terran insignia glowed bright as dawn. Evac team inbound, the pilot announced. We've got visual on the captain. Drex fired his weapon wildly, but the Terrans were faster. Marines dropped from the ship, armored and silent. Within minutes, the square was secure. The raiders scattered. The surviving Varelians fell to their knees, staring in disbelief at the soldiers of legend standing among them. Elias turned to Riva. It's over, he said. She shook her head. No, it's just beginning. Above them, the vortex transmitted a single message back to Fleet Command. Rescue confirmed. Locals protected. Recommend immediate fleet arrival. Enemy forces larger than expected. Admiral Reyes read the transmission in silence. She leaned forward on the holotable, eyes burning with resolve. Prepare the fleet, she said. We're going to Virelon. Far beyond, Drex Maller's remaining ships regrouped in the shadows of a nearby moon. He stared at the image of the Terran insignia on his monitor. So, he growled, the humans still fight for their own. Then his cybernetic eye glowed red. Let's see how far they'll go to protect the weak. The Terran Marines moved like phantoms through the forests of Virelon. Their armor shimmered with adaptive light, blending into the shadows as they cleared out the last of the raiders. The Varelians watched in stunned silence, unsure if these humans were gods or soldiers. Captain Elias Trent stood among them, his face pale under the orange sky. Get the wounded to the ships, he ordered. His voice was weak, but his eyes burned with purpose. Lieutenant Havel reported over comms. Admiral Reyes has received our signal. A full battle group is en route. Elias nodded. Good, we'll need them. Around them, the air was thick with the scent of smoke and ozone. The raiders had left nothing but ashes, but Virelon still stood. Riva moved through the injured, healing as many as she could with trembling hands. When she looked up, she saw the Terran insignia on the soldier's armor, an eagle holding the stars, and for the first time, she understood the stories Elias had told her. Humanity wasn't just a name whispered in fear. It was a promise. But the threat was far from over. In the upper atmosphere, Drex Malor's remaining ships regrouped. His flagship, the Iron Fang, hung in orbit like a black blade. Inside, Drex slammed his fist into the console. They brought in soldiers, Terran soldiers. His lieutenant, pale and shaking, said, Sir, we lost half our fleet. We should retreat before the main Terran force arrives. Drex's cybernetic eye flickered red. Retreat? No, we'll make them bleed. Send a signal to my allies in the outer reaches. Tell them Drex Malor has a prize the humans want. Across the void, hidden networks of smugglers, mercenaries, and rogue captains received the message. Ships began to move. A new armada was forming, one driven by greed and hatred of the Terran name. On the surface, Riva approached Elias as he examined the wreckage of the raider base. They'll come back, she said quietly. Elias nodded. They always do. You should leave, she told him. You've done enough. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. I can't, not while they know this planet exists. If I go, they'll return. And next time no one will be left. She frowned. You're one man. I was, he said softly. But now the fleet is coming. Over the comms, Lieutenant Havel's voice crackled. Captain, we've got movement in orbit. Multiple new signatures inbound. Raiders, at least a dozen ships. Elias's jaw tightened. Then it's already begun. He turned to Riva. Get your people underground. Hide them in the mountain shelters. We'll hold the line here. Reva hesitated. And you? I'll buy you time. She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. It wasn't pride, it was duty. The same duty that had kept him alive long after his fleet had died. The Terran Marines dug in, setting up plasma turrets and shield generators. Their drones buzzed overhead, mapping the terrain. The sound of engines echoed from the sky as Drex's new fleet descended, blotting out the sun. Reva's people ran for the caverns as explosions rocked the ground. "This is madness," one of the elders cried. "They'll destroy everything." Reva turned to him. "Then we stand with them. The humans fought for us. We fight for them." As the first raider dropships landed, the forests erupted into chaos. Fire streaked through the trees. Terran Marines met them head-on, their weapons cutting through armor like paper. Elias moved at the front, rifle in hand, armor scorched but unyielding. Every shot was precise, every command clear. "Hold the ridge! Push them back!" he shouted. The Varelians, armed with scavenged weapons, joined the defense. For the first time in their history, they fought as soldiers. The battle raged for hours. Smoke darkened the sky. Then, through the roar of explosions, a new sound rose, a deep rolling thunder that made the air tremble. The raiders looked up. The clouds split apart. From the rift of light came a wall of silver. The Terran fleet. Hundreds of ships emerged from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming like blades of dawn. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, all bearing the mark of Earth. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of her flagship, the TNS Resolute. "Open all channels," she commanded. Her voice echoed across every comm system in the sector. "This is Admiral Reyes of Terran Command. To the raider forces attacking the planet Virail. You have assaulted a world that harbored one of our own. You have spilled innocent blood. You now face the full weight of humanity." The sky burned white as Terran railguns fired their first salvo. The lead raider battleship shattered instantly, torn apart in a single strike. The rest broke formation, panicking. "Engage at will," Reyes ordered. "Show them who we are." The humans moved like a storm. Beams of plasma carved through the raider fleet. In minutes, the battle that had seemed hopeless turned into annihilation. On the surface, the ground shook from the force of orbital strikes. Elias watched the sky in silence as streaks of light tore through the darkness. Reva stood beside him, eyes wide with awe. "They came," she whispered. Elias nodded. "They always do." But the victory wasn't complete. Deep in the mountains, Drex Mailer had escaped the bombardment. He carried with him a stolen alien device, something old, pulsing with energy not of this galaxy. He looked down at it and smiled. "Let them have their victory," he muttered. "They won't last." The device pulsed once, sending a shockwave through the ground. Far above, the Terran scanners picked up an anomaly beneath Virilon's surface. Admiral Reyes frowned. "What the hell is that?" Elias's comm beeped. "Captain," said Havel's urgent voice, "we're detecting massive energy build-up below your position. Whatever it is, it's not friendly." Elias turned to Reva. "Get your people deeper underground," he said. "The real fight's about to start." The Terran fleet filled the skies of Virelon like a storm of steel and fire. Admiral Reyes stood at the center of the command bridge, her gaze fixed on the tactical display. Red blips, enemy signals, were vanishing one by one. "Status report," she ordered. "Enemy fleet destroyed, Admiral," replied Lieutenant Grant. "Surface resistance still active near the southern ridges. Captain Trent's unit is holding." Reyes nodded slowly. "Good. Begin relief operations. Get med-evac teams down there. And I want orbital scans on that anomaly under the surface. Something's wrong down there." Outside, the TNS Resolute drifted above the planet's glowing atmosphere, her massive guns cooling after the bombardment. Hundreds of smaller ships began descending through the clouds, dropships, med shuttles, engineers. The war had ended for now, but a tension hung over everyone, an unspoken warning that it wasn't finished. On the surface, Elias Trent limped through the ruins of the battlefield. His armor was dented, his rifle low on power, but his eyes burned with purpose. Around him, Varelians and Terran Marines worked side by side, rescuing survivors. "We've got civilians trapped near the eastern canyon," Reva called out. "We need help moving the debris." Elias motioned to his men. "You heard her, move!" Together they lifted shattered metal beams as Reva pulled out survivors, her hands glowing with biolight from her healing tools. One of the rescued Varelians looked up weakly. Are they gone? Elias gave a faint smile. For now. But above them the sky rumbled, not from thunder, but from something deep and unnatural. A pulse of energy rippled across the air, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Captain. Havel's voice crackled through the comm. We've got a problem. Massive energy surge coming from underground. Origin matches that alien device the raiders had. Elias cursed under his breath. Riva, how deep are your mountain caverns? She frowned. Far below the surface, why? Because whatever that thing is, it's waking up. The sky turned green for a second, a ripple spreading through the clouds. On the Resolute, alarms blared. Admiral, the anomaly is expanding, shouted Grant. It's forming. Something. A rift, maybe. Reyes's eyes narrowed. Lock sensors. Power up the main batteries. I want everything pointed at that site. But before they could act, the rift exploded outward in a column of black light. A shockwave tore through the fleet, sending ships spinning. On the ground, Elias was thrown to his knees as the earth split open, revealing a massive chasm glowing with symbols. From its depths rose something mechanical, ancient and alive. A massive construct, shaped like a sphere of shifting metal plates, each covered in alien runes. What in God's name is that? Whispered Riva. Elias stared, speechless. It's not human, not raider, something older. The construct began to hum, its plates rotating, drawing energy from the planet itself. Every scanner went wild. Admiral, said Grant, it's draining the planet's core energy. If it continues, Virelon will collapse within hours. Reyes clenched her fists. Then we stop it. She turned to her crew. Deploy the fleet's heavy units. Ground artillery to support Captain Trent. Tell him, whatever it takes, that machine doesn't leave orbit. On the surface, thunder rolled as Terran dropships descended, deploying tanks and mech suits across the battlefield. The Marines regrouped, forming a perimeter around the glowing rift. Elias raised his communicator. Admiral, it's massive. We're going to need more than guns to stop it, Reyes replied, her tone steady. Then you'll have them. Earth owes that world a debt. The words carried through every Terran channel, an unspoken command that this battle was no longer just about one man. It was about humanity keeping its promise. As the construct rose higher, its tendrils began to extend outward, striking anything within range. A Terran gunship exploded mid-air, its wreckage raining down like meteors. Open fire, Elias roared. Plasma bolts streaked across the sky, hammering the construct's surface, but its armor absorbed the impact like water. The Virelians watched in terror from the mountains. Riva turned to Elias. It's feeding from the planet. If we destroy it here, we might destroy Virelon too. Elias hesitated, the weight of her words sinking in. Then there's only one choice. We find a way to cut its power source. He glanced at the hologram projection flickering from his wrist. It's connected to a network beneath the surface. A control core, maybe. Riva stepped forward. I can guide you. My people know those caverns. You're not coming, Elias said. Her's too dangerous. She met his gaze firmly. You said we're one of you now. Then let me prove it. Elias paused, then gave a grim nod. All right. Gear up. They moved quickly, gathering a small strike team, 2 Marines, 1 engineer, and Riva. As the others held the line above, the team entered the fissure leading down into the planet's heart. The tunnels glowed faintly, filled with humming crystal veins that pulsed like veins of light. It's like the planet is alive, Riva whispered. Maybe it is, Elias muttered. As they moved deeper, the air grew hotter, and the hum louder. The ground shook with every beat of the construct above. Then they reached a chamber, a massive sphere of light at the core, connected by chains of energy. At its center pulsed the same device Drex Mahler had taken. There, Elias said. That's the power source. The engineer began setting charges. But before they could activate them, a voice echoed through the chamber, metallic and cold. You should not have come. From the shadows stepped Drex Mahler, half his body now fused with alien metal, his eyes burning with unnatural light. You don't understand what this is. It's not a weapon. It's a god. Elias raised his rifle. Then it's time your god learned what humans do to monsters. The heat inside the cavern was unbearable. Lava veins glowed beneath the cracked stone floor, and the giant machine above pulsed with a heartbeat of its own. Elias Trent stood firm, his armor scorched, his rifle aimed at Drex Mahler. The Raider Lord was no longer human, his flesh fused with alien metal, his veins glowing blue with energy drawn from the construct. "You can't stop it," Drex said, his voice echoing through the chamber. Like thunder, this world is already bound to the core. When it awakens, Virelon will become the heart of a new empire, and I will be its king. Riva stepped forward, her eyes fierce. "You're killing the planet!" "No," Drex sneered. "I'm giving it purpose." Without warning, he raised his arm and a blast of energy slammed into the team. The engineer was thrown against the wall, his equipment shattering. Elias rolled behind a pillar as molten shards flew past. "Cover fire!" he shouted. The Marines opened fire, plasma bolts lighting up the chamber, but Drex moved faster than any man should. His cybernetic limbs blurred, deflecting shots with glowing shields. "You're too late," he roared, striking the ground. A shockwave rippled outward, shattering the stone bridge beneath them. Elias barely managed to grab Riva's arm before she fell into the chasm. "Hold on," he yelled, pulling her up. Above them, the massive construct began to change, its plates splitting open, revealing a core of swirling blue energy. The noise grew deafening. "Admiral Reyes to ground team," a voice crackled through the comm. "That thing's destabilizing the planet. You need to stop it now, or we're pulling out." Elias gasped for breath. "No retreat, Admiral." "Not yet." He turned to the engineer, who was bleeding but conscious. "Can you still set the charges?" The man coughed. "Manual trigger only." "Someone has to stay here." Riva looked at Elias. "You can't—" "I'm not asking you to," he cut her off. "I'll do it." But before he could move, Drex slammed into him, throwing him against the wall. Sparks flew as Elias's armor cracked. Drex raised a glowing blade from his arm. "You can't kill what's already reborn," he hissed. Elias blocked the strike with his rifle, sparks spraying as the two locked together. "Maybe not," Elias grunted, "but I can still finish the job." He drove a plasma grenade against Drex's chest and detonated it point blank. The explosion threw them both across the chamber. When the smoke cleared, Drex was crawling, half his body gone, molten metal dripping from his side. Elias dragged himself up, every breath burning. Riva knelt beside him. "You can't keep fighting," she said, voice breaking. He smiled weakly. "It's what I do." He looked toward the glowing device pulsing in the center of the chamber. "That's the control node. If we destroy it, the core dies with it." Riva shook her head. "It's linked to the planet's energy veins. If it collapses, Virelon might break apart." "Then we'll pray it doesn't," Elias said. He stumbled toward the node, planting the final charge beneath it. Drex's voice echoed behind them, twisted and furious. "You think this will save you? When the core dies, so will you all. Humanity can't save everything." Elias turned back, eyes blazing. "We don't save everything," he said quietly. "But we never stop trying." He slammed his hand down on the detonator. The world exploded in light. The cavern shook violently as shockwaves tore through the ground. The machine screamed, its plates collapsing inward. Energy surged upward through the fissures, reaching into the sky. On the surface, the Terran troops watched as a column of blue fire erupted from the mountains, reaching space itself. The Resolute scanners went wild. "Admiral, the energy readings are off the charts." "Pull back the fleet," Reyes commanded. "Brace for impact." From orbit, the sight was breathtaking. A beam of light piercing the stars as the core imploded, then folded in on itself. A blinding flash consumed everything. When the light faded, silence. For a moment, no one spoke. On the ground, Riva coughed amid the smoke and rubble. She pushed debris aside, searching desperately. "Elias!" she cried, no answer. She stumbled toward the collapsed chamber. The walls glowed faintly, cooling from the blast. And then she saw him, half buried under rubble, armor shattered but alive. She ran to him, tears streaming down her face. "You fool," she whispered. "How did it?" He smiled faintly. "Told you. Humans don't give up easy." Outside, the skies cleared. The massive construct was gone, and the energy veins faded to silence. Admiral Reyes's voice came through the comms again, soft but steady. "Ground team, this is the Resolute. We have visual confirmation. The core has been destroyed. The planet stabilizing. Repeat, Virelon is safe." Riva looked at the sky, watching as Terran ships descended once more. The Virelians emerged from their shelters, staring in awe at the quiet dawn. Humanity had not only saved them, they had kept their promise. But in the depths of space beyond Terran sensors, something stirred. A fragment of the core's energy drifted into the void, pulsing faintly before vanishing into the darkness. And in that darkness, far beyond known space, unseen eyes opened. The stars were quiet again, but the silence felt uneasy. Weeks had passed since the Battle of Virelon, and the Terran fleet still orbited the planet, rebuilding what had been destroyed. Admiral Reyes stood on the observation deck of the Resolute, watching the blue-green world below. "Reports from the surface?" she asked. "Stabilized atmosphere, Admiral," replied Lieutenant Grant. "Energy readings normal. The Virelians are rebuilding with our engineers' help. Captain Trent is still in recovery." Reyes nodded slowly. "Good, he earned his rest." Yet her eyes never left the stars. Something about the explosion that destroyed the core still haunted her. The readings had shown a burst of energy that extended far beyond Virelon's system, something that should have been impossible. Down below in the medical wing of the Terran base, Elias Trent sat beside a window, watching the sunrise over the mountains. His left arm was wrapped in bandages, his armor replaced with hospital fabric, but his eyes were sharp as ever. Riva entered quietly, carrying a small container of glowing liquid. "You shouldn't be up," she said. He smiled faintly. "You've been saying that for 3 days, because you don't listen." She handed him the drink, her expression softening. "The healers say you'll recover, though they still don't understand your biology." "Neither do I sometimes," Elias said with a smirk. But the humor faded quickly. "Any news from orbit?" "The humans are leaving soon," she said. "They're giving us technology, medicine, power systems. You've changed everything, Elias." He looked down. "You did that. You chose to help a stranger when everyone else was afraid." Riva shook her head. "You were never a stranger." Outside, the wind carried the faint hum of Terran engines. Virelon's skies now held both alien and human ships working together. But deep underground, unknown to them all, the ruins of the alien core still pulsed faintly, one last heartbeat echoing in the darkness. Far across the void, in a region of uncharted space, the signal from that pulse reached a listening post, an ancient construct buried inside an asteroid field. Its sensors flickered to life after centuries of silence. Data flowed, translating into a single message: Terran interference detected. Activation required. And somewhere in the shadows of deep space, something enormous began to move. Back on the Resolute, Admiral Reyes frowned as the communications officer turned toward her. "Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up an anomaly at the edge of the system. No known transponder codes." "Put it on screen," Reyes ordered. The display flickered, showing static, then shapes. Massive structures, metallic and organic, emerging from a rift. "How big?" "At least 10 kilometers across. We've never seen anything like it." Reyes leaned forward. "Alert the fleet. All units to combat readiness." Alarms blared through the ship. Crew members rushed to their stations. Down on the surface, Elias heard the warning through his comm. "Trent to command, what's happening?" "We've got incoming," said Reyes's voice. "Unknown origin. You might want to stay under cover." Elias stood immediately, ignoring the pain in his side. "Not happening, Admiral. I'm not sitting this one out." He turned to Riva. "Looks like peace doesn't last long." She hesitated. "Elias, you can't even stand straight." "Doesn't matter. If they're coming for us, they'll find me waiting." He grabbed his half-repaired armor and weapons, limping out of the medical bay. Above the planet, the void rippled like water as the alien vessels emerged fully into real space. They were unlike anything the Terrans had seen, sleek and silent, with surfaces that shifted like living metal. "They're not raiders," Reyes murmured. "Too advanced." "Trying to hail them," said Grant, but no response. Then the comms filled with a strange signal, deep, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. It resonated through the hulls of the ships, through the crew's bones. "What is that?" someone whispered. The answer came seconds later, as a blast of energy shot from one of the vessels, striking a Terran destroyer and vaporizing it instantly. "Return fire," Reyes shouted. The fleet opened fire, railguns and plasma cannons lighting the void, but the enemy ships moved like ghosts, bending around the attacks. "Their shields are adapting," shouted Grant. "They're learning our frequencies." Reyes clenched her jaw. "Then we'll change them faster. Get every ship in formation. Protect the planet." On the surface, the sky turned red as beams of light pierced the atmosphere. Virelians screamed and ran for cover as explosions shook the ground. Elias raised his comm. "Admiral, you need to draw them away from the planet." "We're trying," came the reply. "But they're not targeting us, they're targeting the ruins." Elias froze. "The ruins?" He looked toward the mountains, realization dawning. "They're after the core. They're the ones who built it." Reva's eyes widened. "Then destroying it." "Woke them up," Elias finished grimly. He turned toward the hills.